Howdy and welcome to the Confidence Through Health podcast. I'm Jerry Snyder. As an elite level athlete, owner of All In Health and Wellness, and author of the book Confidence Through Health, my goal is to help you achieve your goals and dreams using health as the conduit to get there. So I want to take a minute to thank our sponsor for this episode, Luna Juice Bar. If you are in the Waco area, stop by Luna Juice Bar or check out their food truck at the Magnolia Silos for your healthy food, your juice, your smoothies, everything that you need to get your body heading in the right direction from a nutrition standpoint. Check out Luna Juice Bar. The link is on my website, confidencethroughhealth.com, or you can go to lunajuicebar.com to look at the menu and order online as well. So thank you to our sponsor, Luna Juice Bar. Howdy, and thank you for joining me on the Confidence Through Health podcast. In this episode, I speak with Matt Shane. He is a doctor of physical therapy, and he's actually worked on me multiple times. He talks about, the need for physical therapy, why it's important to your everyday life, and when it is necessary for you to have therapy, but also why it's important to do things and what things to do to keep yourself out of the therapist office, and how to avoid chronic pain. We talk about injuries. We talk a little bit about my personal injuries and how he's helped me recover from those. And he talks about the new techniques that are out there that he's using, ASTYM and dry needling, both of which he's used on me, both of which are amazing as far as helping with the recovery process and getting you back to where you want to be quicker and with less pain. And it's true. You don't have to be in pain when you go to therapy. The goal of a therapy session, a physical therapy session, is to get you out of pain and get you back to where you were and beyond, get you better than you ever have been. So I thought it was a great conversation. So my friend Matt Shane joined me in this episode. I hope you enjoy it. All right. So thanks, Matt, for being on the Confidence Through Health podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So tell everybody, you're a physical therapist, a doctorate in physical therapist or physical therapy. Tell everybody a little bit about like why you got into physical therapy and what it is that drives you to help people.
So, I've always been an active person, been involved in sports throughout high school, 3-sport athlete with cross country, skiing and track. And, there's injuries that happen with that. And, one of my injuries required surgery. And that was my first introduction to physical therapy, was my senior year in high school, where I had to have knee surgery, and came back from it very well, very successful after that surgery. Did very well that last year of sports. And that just kind of put that little seed in my brain of what a physical therapist does. As I got into college, I was tinkering around with different professions, careers, and, started down the path of dentistry. Okay. And, my dad's a dentist. And so I was like, oh, okay, that seems like a good profession, and was going to do that. And, one day I was just like, I don't want to work in someone's mouth the rest of my life, and had to figure out what I want to do. And that physical therapy seed just came back in my head. I was like, I'm going to try physical therapy. So I started doing some shadowing and some volunteering at a couple places where I was going to college, and it just really got into me. Like, this is what I want to do. The PTs that I worked with, they were very passionate about their patients, about helping people get back to moving. And I think that's my drive that I have now. Now that I have been a physical therapist for, am I going on 14 years now? Yeah. It's, a patient comes in my office and they're not doing well. They can't move, they can't do the things they want to. And they're relying on my knowledge and expertise and some of my guidance to help them to get moving again. And that's what I love about physical therapy, is that I get to participate in someone else's success. Right. I get to challenge that patient with different exercises and stretches, and it's very satisfying to have a patient come in after like a total knee surgery where they can barely walk, to getting back doing for them yard work or going up a flight of stairs.
Right.
And then for my athletes, I got athletes that come in with maybe a shoulder surgery from baseball or whatever, and they have to take a year off. And that's the hardest year of their life is that year. And to see them go from each step of the process back to where they can get back to sports is it's fulfilling. And I love it. It keeps me active because I have to be, I gotta walk the walk if I'm going to talk the talk.
Right.
I gotta be somewhat healthy as far as exercising. I've had my health issues that I've had in the past, but it's, my mentality is, okay, I need to exercise as well. I need to stay fit because I'm telling all my patients to stay fit. So it's just been very, very rewarding for me mentally to do what I do. It's not a job anymore. It's a service for me that I get to provide for my patients. Yeah.
Well, and you're one of the, I trust you with my therapy. So, that says a lot from my point of view, because you worked on me multiple times. But the first time we met, I knew instantly because your passion for what is huge. And that you do totally, like, I remember, running in your parking lot to make sure that my hamstring was good. And I was like, yeah, it feels great. And I turn around and you've got a big smile on your face because I've got the success, and so that's huge to see in a therapist, that you care that much. It's great. So it's not just a job,
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So thinking of injuries, and you do a lot with sports injuries, you do a lot with, any kind of injury, but what are some things that we as a human body are not doing that can just be, prevent those common injuries that you see that you're like, oh my gosh, I wish people would just do this because then they wouldn't have to come into my office? The
biggest one that I see and the most preventable is neck and back pain due to poor posture.
Yeah.
With things going to technology the way they are, working on a computer for 8 hours a day plus, and most of our time is sitting in front of some type of device or sitting. Right. We as a human race, we have some of the worst posture. And so neck and back pain is probably one of those injuries that is the most preventable with proper exercise, stretching. And I teach it all day long, and I have to remind myself to correct my posture. Mm-hmm. I'm guilty of it too, because it's so easy to get down in that slump position.
Right.
So, having reminders or cues around you to sit up straight or to take a break. That's one of the biggest things that people forget is to get away from their desk, get away from their workstation so that they can, move their body, get muscles activated again instead of sitting in a stationary position for so long. So I would say that's number one. That's the number one preventable problem we see with PT right now.
Right. So that's more than just, not that 30 minutes or an hour of yoga, 3 times a week is not a good, that's a great thing to do.
That's a great thing. Yeah, it's a great thing.
But it's more than just like, that's not the cure all for the posture issues because it's the
daily. Yeah. Like when I talk to my patients that come in for neck and back pain, sit at a desk for who knows how long at a day. I tell them, get a kitchen timer. Mm-hmm. Get a kitchen timer, set it, or their phone. Everybody has a phone or a smartwatch, and you set it for 10 minutes at first to get an external cue from something to remind you to change your posture, because you got to start changing what's in the brain as far as what's considered a normal sitting position.
Right.
That's where it starts. Like you said, yoga, 3 times a week, 4 times a week is great for the body, but it's not going to fix the posture if we don't fix the problem first. Right. And that's from sitting. And that's also, what the brain is saying. So,
yeah. Well, and I agree with you that technology and, television shows, binge watching things, it's so easy. And I think most of us have found ourselves that, we sit on the couch and all of a sudden, Netflix has got a great deal where they just start the next show and they start the next show. And then it's like,
they tease you too.
Yeah. 3 hours later and you're like, you can't barely move because you've been sitting and you you don't start necessarily in horrible posture, but you end there after 3 hours because your body just keeps relaxing and relaxing.
Yeah. Well, people don't realize how often they do sit a day. Let's say you get a guy or a person that sits at a desk for their work, they're driving to their job.
Right.
Who knows how long. They sit for their job for, before lunch. They sit for lunch, after lunch, and then they sit back in their car. And then they go home and eat dinner. They're sitting. And then, like you said, they go and sit and watch some TV for an hour or two. And, you have a 24-hour period. How many hours is that? It's like 16 hours.
Yeah.
So it's a long time of sitting.
Yeah, that's true. So you take that person that does that during the week and then they do their weekend warrior stuff and they, they're out for their softball tournament or their, pickup basketball games or, and then they're in your office because they pulled a muscle or they did something, so besides posture, fixing that during the week, what are those other things that the weekend warrior that and I get it because I was one of those guys before I transitioned back to being a full-time athlete where it was just in the weekend. It's like, I'm going to hit it hard and then deal with the pain and suffering for Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and then wait till Saturday and hit it hard again.
Yeah. So my advice of that is don't be a weekend warrior.
Right.
That's like number one is, it's a, like you said, you're going to be sore or even hurt for a few days. And that's just a cycle. It's always going to happen because you never train the body to participate in that activity.
Yeah.
And so, and it doesn't have to be a rigorous exercise plan. For some people, it just means getting out and walk around the neighborhood for 30 minutes every day.
Right.
Just something that they can do to move their body, or you do develop an exercise plan. And for most people, the number one thing they have to do is to do that plan, but then go to their doctor and clear that plan with their doctor to make sure that they don't have any underlying issues that may come up from an exercise program.
Right.
That's one of the biggest things that we make a mistake of is like, oh, I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week, but I've got this underlying heart condition that I don't know about. And they're doing a rigorous program and they keel over in the gym.
Right.
So, getting your body checked by your doctor, by your primary care is important to your health.
Yeah.
And they're going to probably say, yeah, you do need to develop a program. And this is what I suggest. And then you go from there.
Yeah.
So, doing some kind of exercise every day. Like for me, when I was participating in my events, I was a triathlete.
Right.
It was 60 to 90 minutes a day, and that was Monday through Friday. And then Saturdays was who knows how long, 3-4 hours.
Right.
So, that's on the extreme level of it because of the type of event that was. But, if you just want normal exercise for maybe like with a lot of patients that I work with, my older individuals, it's, 15, 30 minutes of some kind of exercise. And you don't have to go to the gym to do that. Body weight exercise is great.
Right. So with body weight or the gym, working out to build strength, I think a lot of people, not having necessarily a proper exercise plan, maybe they're in their 50s and they remember, I remember these 3 exercises from football or, softball or whatever it is. It's like, I remember doing this. And so they just focus on those 3 exercises, or maybe they see somebody in the gym doing another one and they're like, oh, I'll add that in. That seems pretty easy. But that's not necessarily the best way to go about an exercise plan, right? Especially from a physical, because you'll wind up, disjointed and having all kinds of other issues that compensation issues and things that kind of happen. Correct.
That's what I was going to say is people, they compensate for that exercise because they're weak somewhere else.
Right.
And we go back to that, the neck back pain person sitting for however many hours. They have very little core strength, very little glute strength that's going to support their body when they're trying to do some kind of lift or some kind of exercise. And so their mechanics are going to be completely not wrong, but incorrect with that type of exercise. And so learning the correct mechanics, learning the correct movement of that exercise is key to developing proper strength and to not compensate and put too much stress somewhere else.
Right.
I see a lot of individuals that do a simple bicep curl with a bar. and they're extending their back. They're kind of bending backwards with their body as they're trying to do that lift. And it's like, you're using more back muscles than you are bicep muscles.
Right.
And so it's like, okay, drop the weight down, first of all, so you can perform that with proper posture or proper mechanics.
Right.
And then what I do a lot of therapy in my office in front of a mirror, so they can see how their body's moving. Actually, I had an individual the other day, and we were just doing simple motion with their shoulders. Let's say they had a rotator cuff repair, and so little mobility in that shoulder. And so I have them use their good shoulder as a visual cue of how it's supposed to work. And the brain is pretty amazing on how it can say, okay, that one's working right. How do I make that one work? Right. And so by using that mirror as a tool to make sure that you're moving correctly is important. But then also going to somebody and asking a trainer or a professional that knows those exercises and say, okay, how do I do this correctly? YouTube is a great resource for people. I mean, that has been a huge platform for exercise programs for people to do at home. Right. And hopefully they find a reliable source, reliable person that is providing a good resource for them. Right. But that's a big thing. And then also, like you pointed out, they focus on 3 exercises. Yeah. Well, they're missing a lot of things. I know a lot of people that go to the gym, they work on what I call in my field, the global muscles, your bigger muscles, like your pecs or your traps. They forget about the little tiny ones, what I call the stabilizers of your body. And so by working on those exercises, it's going to make the global muscles work even better, because now we have good support of that joint to do that specific exercise. Right. And then also, like I said, the core, the abdominal region, the trunk is the number one exercise that I go to get that stabilization in your abdominal region. And as a physical therapist, I don't have my patients do sit-ups. Right. That's, to me, there are so many other exercises to do to strengthen the core, the abdominal region, without doing a sit-up. Like I can have, going back to that bicep curl, I can get that patient or that individual to engage their abdominal region as they do a bicep curl. Right. And they're going to be working that abdominal core at the same time. And so by, again, focusing on the whole body as an exercise, and, don't do it every day. Don't do the whole body. Focus on different areas, because you're going to get wore out, and you could, be sore for 3 or 4 days, and then you won't go back. But again, it's looking at the body as a whole picture, and not just saying, okay, I need to strengthen my arm, so that's all I'm going to do. Right.
Well, and like, that's a perfect example of that, is because I'm an athlete and I'm in shape and I work out a ton, and I don't water ski during the winter time because it's so cold. And the first time I go out and water ski, and I ski I slalom ski at 36 miles an hour. Like I'm up there, like really pushing it, and I'll get done, and I'm, 2 days later, and I'm sore in areas, and I'm like, man, why is that muscle sore? It shouldn't be sore, but it's just one of those that I'm not using with all the other workouts that I do. So even you can be, in great shape and working out and still have muscles that you're missing.
Oh yeah. Yep. And that's why it's important to do other types of exercise instead of doing the same thing every single day. It's focusing on different body parts. Right. Because if you get in that routine of, okay, I'm going to do, exercise A, B, and C every day. Yeah, you're gonna be really strong there. But if you, like you said, try a different activity that requires other groups, it's gonna come back and bite you. Yeah. And the other thing is that I see this a lot when I go into therapy offices, like if there's somebody else in there that's getting therapy, and, often I see them look over at me and go, holy cow, how is he doing on it? I'm like, don't compare yourself to the other person. Oh yeah. Yeah. Whether it's in the gym and you're working out, or if you're in therapy and you're doing, if you both have the same type of injury or whatnot, like never compare yourself to what somebody else is going through, because you just don't know what their internal strength is and Yeah.
What's
That's one
going
of the
on.
main things I talk about when I'm evaluating a patient. I say to them, okay, Miss Smith over here has had the same surgery,
Mm-hmm.
but you're an individual. Right. You perceive pain differently, different backgrounds, different strengths and weaknesses. So don't compare your progression with each other, because that's unfair to yourself.
Right.
I'll even tell patients, let's say they had a total knee replacement on their left knee, and later on they come back and have the right one done. I tell them, don't compare the two knees. It's going to be it'll be a different process. Yeah. Because maybe a year or two has gone by. You've lost some strength, you've lost some mobility. So do not compare those joints, because that's just going to set you back mentally, and it's going to frustrate you.
Right.
So by keeping it as and that's what I love about my job is I create individual plans and progress the patient as an individual, instead of, okay, you had a total knee, so this is I'll have protocols.
Sure.
But what's nice about those protocols is I can change it at any time based on what I see the patient demonstrating or presenting with. So it's an individual process.
Yeah. Well, and for that person that comes in with the knee surgery, and they're cleared to start physical therapy, and so they come in and you've got the plan, like that's the starting point for recovery. When does the end point happen? Is it when insurance is done, or right? It's never, right?
It never happens.
Yeah.
And yes, they may be finished with formal physical therapy.
Right.
And there's always an end. I don't want a patient coming in for the rest of their life.
Right.
That's not what I want my patients to do. Patients don't want to do that. They don't want to, come see me for 30 to 60 minutes 3 times a week for the rest of their life. That's right. They don't have time for that. So once PT ends, my education to them, and I do this with every patient, is to continue where we stopped.
Right.
So where we got to is to say, okay, now go get a gym membership. Go to somewhere where you can continue doing these exercises often.
Right.
And that's key to having a successful recovery, because some of these patients have had surgery. It can be a year and a half to have a complete recovery.
Right.
But that doesn't mean they're going to be in therapy for a year. Obviously not, because the body heals very well and very quickly sometimes. And so it's educating that patient of, okay, here's your program. Now go do it.
Right.
And I've given them the tools. Maybe I've given them some bands. I print out exercise forms for them. They have resources to go to. And unfortunately, sometimes I'll get a patient that comes back with the same injury. And my number one question is, have you been doing the exercises I gave you from the last time?
Right.
And it's like going to the dentist. They ask you a question like, have you been flossing?
Right.
They already know the answer.
Right.
and so I asked that question just to get them thinking about, I had those exercises. Have I been doing those? And that's crucial to maintaining a healthy physical body, is keeping up on those exercises. It's just like anything is with the body, you either use the muscles or you lose them.
Right.
And so, that recovery or that journey, so to speak, that you're talking about, it never ends.
Yeah.
There's never an end point in my book to stopping exercise for a particular problem. You can always continue with things. Obviously, we have to modify exercises based on our health. That makes sense.
Sure.
But that's okay. You're modifying things, but you're still doing it. And that's the great part about the body, is you can modify an exercise and keep going.
Yeah.
And that's the key to having a healthy body. Well,
and what you said there, sort of, when I work with athletes, especially runners, but really anybody, usually the first thing I do, because most sports, whether it's, track or cross country or just any other sport, you still have to run in the sport for most of them. And so I work with them. The first thing I do in every practice or training session is, we're going to walk through these cones, and I want to see how your foot placement is, because if your foot placement's not good when you walk, it's not going to be good when you run, and it's going to be exacerbated even worse. And teaching people to put their foot down the right way. So I do that for some of the kids and athletes that I work with. I might spend an hour simply walking by cones so that their foot placement's correct. And then I tell them, okay, now you have to go home and do that. Every time you walk anywhere, you have to think about it. You have to do that. You have to put cones out in your house or anything that you can step behind to make sure that your feet are going in the right direction. And then I'll see them the next week. And that's the first thing we do again is go through that. My goal is not to say we're going to go through this again for another 30 minutes, but to say we're going to go through this. I'm going to see if you've done the work or not, because I'll be able to tell right away, and if we can go, okay, we did it once and now we move on to the next thing. So I think that's real similar in how it would go with PT. Because I know I've in the past, before I took some of my injuries seriously, and I didn't do the work at home because I just figured, my body will recover. When I was in high school, I was like, okay. And you show up and you're like, okay, well, we're going to do the same thing again that we did last time. I'm like, oh, we can't progress. Like, no, you didn't do the work. Ready. So
we're not ready. Yeah.
We went backwards instead of going forwards.
Yep.
So
that's why I give that work. Yeah. That's why I give my patients a home exercise program, is because it's going to allow that progression to be faster. Mm-hmm. The body will heal. That's the great part about the body. It will get better. It's just how quickly it will. And if we give it those exercises, those movement patterns to do, it will start to heal faster or develop faster. Yeah. As opposed to, I'm going to come into therapy 2-3 times a week and that's all I'm going to do. Well, progression's going to be really slow and you're going to get bored.
Right. Yeah. Because you'll have to repeat the same thing. And then you're going to say, why do I keep coming here if they're just going to do the same thing over and over again? Yeah.
And that's all about education. It's all about educating the patient, educating the athlete. Be like, there's a reason for this program. There's a reason for why we're doing what we're doing, and why I want you to do it at home is so we can challenge you more here and then give that to you for home. Right.
And what I like is that now I take a different approach. When I get hurt, it's when I come in, like last fall, when I came in, I was like, all right, my goal, you told me I had 6 sessions or whatever it was. I was like, my goal is to get done in 5. So that 6th session that's already paid for, I can come in and you can throw other stuff at me and see if there's any other weaknesses anywhere else. And, and so that's my goal now. When I ever have something, is like, how many times have I got, I'm going to get at least one extra one in there that's paid for by insurance, so that we can see if there's any other weaknesses going on. And hopefully I don't hurt myself in some other way along the way, pushing myself too much. But if I do, I'm already coming to therapy, so it's fine. So,
right.
So what are some of the things that you've done on me? I've been like, whoa, this is pretty cool. This is like, some of the stuff I'd never heard of before you started doing it. And I know it's some of it's pretty recent as far as coming out, as far as techniques and discoveries. And so what are some of those things that people maybe don't know how quickly some of these new techniques can work and heal people?
So a couple of the things that I've done, some of the, what I call continuing education through physical therapy that I've done. One of them is called ASTYM, and it's ASTYM, and it stands for Augmented Soft Tissue Mobilization. Mm-hmm. And in a nutshell, and this is kind of they don't like us saying this, but I basically scrape your tissue with a tool.
Right.
So I have a metal tool and I scrape it. Well, I've had patients in the past where they've had that done and they get really hurt, mainly because the provider that did it incorrectly or was trying to go too hard. Actually, I've had someone do it on me and they left a massive bruise on my leg because they were trying to dig with the tool.
Right.
The proper technique with this is to not dig, is to let the tool do the job. And the basis of that, or the science behind that tool or that technique, is I am trying to create an injury at a microscopic level, at the cellular level. And what I do is it actually causes some seepage of blood at the capillary level that releases different substances in your body, like a growth hormone and different things in your body that helps the healing process. Yeah. Let's say you have an athlete that's, has a chronic injury. Well, they're not healing. Their body has stalled in the healing process. And so with this technique, we jumpstart that healing process again by putting their body back into what I call an inflammatory response.
Right.
that inflammatory response is that rush of blood to that area, that site, to help the healing process. And it shouldn't hurt. It might be uncomfortable in some spots. Different parts of our body are more sensitive, like the thigh or the back of the arm are more sensitive to it. But again, if you have the correct provider that knows how to do the technique correctly, it shouldn't hurt.
Right.
And it actually can speed up the process because we tie it with exercise, we tie it with stretching. So we're just not saying, okay, we're going to do this technique and that's all we're going to do. We're not going to do anything else. No,
right.
we get the body moving with that extra blood flow. And the great part about that technique is doing it having one session of that technique actually has a 2 to 3 week response of the body going through that healing process. Mm-hmm. So it's just not, okay, I'm going to do this once and that's, you're going to get the effects of it that one time. No, it is prolonged. And right. It's a pretty cool technique. And I've done it on patients that have had real chronic issues where they have had joint issues where they can't move different joints a certain way because of an old injury. And we do this technique on them and they regain full range of motion. And they're shocked by it.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool to show them that the body can heal. It's just with the right process, the right techniques.
Right.
Another one that I do is trigger point dry needling.
Right.
Where I take a small monofilament needle, an acupuncture needle,
right.
And I find what's called the trigger point. A trigger point is a muscle fiber that is irritable and taut and like a knot that won't release. And that can cause some mobility issues with different exercises or activities, like yourself as a runner.
Right.
If you're elongating those muscles and you got a taut band that's not wanting to release as you're moving it, it's going to cause pain. You're going to compensate with the run, with the motion of running. It can cause other areas to fatigue because they're having to do extra work.
Right.
And so what you do is we find that trigger point with palpation with my hands.
Yep.
And then we find that area that's taut and we stick a needle in it. And that needle assists in getting it to relax. It's a very cool technique and it's new for me. Prior to me going through this process of learning how to do it and getting certified in trigger point release, I was deathly afraid of needles. Yeah. Couldn't stand needles, getting injections or shots or whatever. It freaked me out.
Yeah. But
then going through this technique, you're a patient yourself when you're learning how to do it, and getting stuck so many different times can, help with overcoming that fear. But the great part about it, again, it's one of those techniques that we do the trigger point release, then we do other manual therapy, meaning either I do some more soft tissue work or some joint mobilizations to free up that tissue to get it moving again. And then going and testing it, like with yourself, going out in the parking lot and running in the parking lot to see what a kind of a response we get. Yeah. And at times it's immediate. Sometimes it can take more than one session. But for some people, it's almost an immediate response where they have that release.
Yeah. Well, and that is like for listeners, that's what happened to me is that last fall, I stepped wrong. I wasn't running or anything. I was cutting some brush off a tree and stepped wrong, and my knee gave out and triggered in my hamstring. And I didn't go see Matt for like 2 weeks. I just kept running on it, and I don't know how many other trigger points created from that one.
Oh yeah,
and
we found them.
Yeah, and it's using that technique. It's really unique to see because it's not painful, but it triggers the muscle to fire, and so your foot or your leg or your arm or whatever it's working on will start moving around just because he moves a needle. It's really neat. But like you said, it for me at least, in most of the times he's had to do it on me, it's been pretty much instantaneous that the knot's gone. Which is just I don't know of anything else that I've had exposed to that has worked like that on a muscle knot. So
it's pretty, and it's nice that it is that quick. I'm sticking that needle in there for maybe 30 seconds. Yeah. Finding those areas that are taut, and we actually get a response if we hit that that trigger point, we actually get the muscle to it grabs.
Yeah.
And it twitches on its own. And that means, hey, we're on it.
Yeah.
We're on that muscle and it's going to work. So,
yep.
And that the thing about trigger point dry needling is that's not the only therapy that we use with it. Like I said, we do other things. We'll then go stretch or go strengthen that muscle group with it, to assist with that process. So,
yeah. But I think that's a huge advantage in that, just like with anything else, if there's a problem, you can massage out the symptoms and, the soreness, or you can stretch out the soreness. You can do all these other things, but if you never actually hit the root cause and fix the root cause, just like with anything else with diet or, your car, if you've got a problem with your car and you keep fixing other different places on it, but you never get the actual thing that's causing the problem.
And that's the great thing about therapy. Yeah. Is we, at least with my approach is I'm going after the why. Yeah. Why is your knee hurting? It's not necessarily, might not be your knee. Right. It may be coming from somewhere else. It's referred pain that's coming from a different area. With the trigger point dry needling, there's a muscle group in your body that has a referred pain pattern in your low back. Okay. Well, the muscle that's involved with that specific referred pain pattern is in your calf. Oh, wow. And so what I would do as a therapist is if someone's coming in for a low back issue and it's right in that area, I'm first going to clear the back. Right. I'm going to make sure that the mobility is there, the soft tissue is working, and then I'll start going above and below that area. Go to the hips, check the hips. Not in the hips, go down to the knees. Go down to the knees. It's like, okay, I know that one spot is a referred pain pattern for the calf, so then I'll go into the calf. Yeah, and I'll be like, okay, that's the why. Wow. And so unfortunately, some providers, both physical therapists and unfortunately doctors, are going after the what. Yep. They're like, oh, you have pain in your back. Okay. Here's a stretch. Here's an exercise for your back. Maybe here's some medication to decrease your pain. They're going after the what. Yep. Instead of going after the why. And that's what I love about my job, is that the why is sometimes nowhere near the site of the problem. Right. And that's why I love what I do, because we get to go look for it. We get to go find it. And like what you said, with different exercises, we see how the body is moving and compensating, and then figure, okay, you got that little hitch in your gait, in the way you walk. Why is that happening? And then we can go look for it throughout the body. Right. Well, and that's why I could come back to you, and that's why I refer people to you, because the pain that I had when I messed up last fall was in my knee, and that's what I told you. I was like, my knee's jacked up, and one of the first things you did was like, oh, well, here's the spot in your hamstring right there that's causing the knee to mess up. And I was like, what? I was like, no, the knee is causing the hamstring. And you're like, no, it's the other way around. Yeah. And I was like, okay, good to know. And here I am. I'm an exercise physiologist. I know the body. I know muscles. And, but it's always good to have somebody else looking at you. It's hard to diagnose yourself. Yeah. You can't see how your body's moving or how it's compensating unless you get yourself in front of a camera and do it that way. But it's nice to have another pair of eyes to look at you. Right. And it's looking at it objectively, not trying to, I'm trying to prevent this pain right here. So, but you can look at it and go, well, yeah, you're trying to do that, but it's because of this over here, and your compensation is all wrong. Yep. And we got to fix that. So, yeah. Well, man, I greatly appreciate you being on. I think it's been helpful. I think, is there anything else that you would want to say to somebody who is, just struggling with just that, maybe it's that pain that they've had, that chronic pain that they've had forever, and they just think that's their life. Cause that's not true, right? I mean, there shouldn't be chronic pain in your body. Go see a physical therapist, go see a specialist that deals with the way the body moves, find out what's wrong with it. And in my profession, it's get moving.
Yeah.
Do something to get your body moving, to work it. That's one of the best things for your body. You know, my business is called Active Sports Physical Therapy because you need to be active. You know, a person at rest is going to stay at rest.
Right.
You know, but getting yourself moving and getting moving can actually really help the body, even if you're hurt. That's kind of like the old theory of recovery, is if you're hurting, to not move.
Right.
Well, we're getting away from that. We're getting away from that theory of, okay, you sprain your ankle, I'm going to put you in a boot for so many weeks. No, I can get someone that sprained their ankle one day and they come to my office the next day. If I see them for, you know, a week and a half straight, I'll get them back on the field. Right. After just a week and a half. Yeah. So it's changing that mindset of what the old theories were, the old way of medicine is. Now it's, okay, we got to get this body moving sooner. Yeah. Because if we wait, things tighten up, we get muscle weakness, and then that compensation sets in where the body starts moving differently. And then we got to fight that compensation. Right. And change what the brain has kind of made new movement patterns. So for someone that's dealing with chronic pain, there's things to do to overcome that pain. Right. We may not heal it completely, but we can reduce it. We can get other body parts working better so that you can move better. Yeah. And, you know, there's no use in living in pain for years and years. There's the research out there for physical therapy, for, you know, different techniques. It supports what we do and can get people's lives back, to be functional again, to be able to do the things that they enjoy doing or want to do again. Yeah. And that's key. So if you're living with pain, go see somebody that deals with pain, that can work with pain. You know, a physical therapist is a great start. Yeah. And with the way that insurance works right now, you can go see a physical therapist in some states without a referral from a doctor. Right. You know, we have the education to prognose a problem. And if we need more diagnostic tools, then we refer to some of the doctors that we trust. Right. And that's what I love about what I do, is I can take an athlete that, you know, maybe comes from yourself, that I can have them come in my office and do an evaluation and start them down. And if I see, we have some issues here, we need some more knowledge, we need some more testing here. Right. So let's go get an X-ray, let's go get an MRI. And then I say out right now, especially in Texas, is that we can do that. You can see a physical therapist first. Yeah. Well, and one of the things you mentioned is it reminds me of the injury I got almost 5 years ago now, when I tore up my knee water skiing. Again, doing stuff that I probably shouldn't have been doing, but, you know, for my age at least. And, you know, so I ruptured my PCL completely, 3rd degree MCL, bunch of other stuff that came out of it on the MRI. And, you know, and I wanted a second opinion from a surgery standpoint, from a doctor standpoint and everything. And I went back to the team doctor at A&M when I was running back there. So I went back to see him, and one of his first question actually was, when he walked in the room, was like, "Why are you here?" And we're like, "Well, you saw the reports." And he goes, "Yeah, why are you here?" I'm like, "Well, I want a second opinion." I said, "Do I need surgery?" He goes, "No." And I said, "Okay." He goes, "If this would have happened to one of my football players in a game, which would, you know, common knee injuries, football game." He goes, if your injury would have happened to them, we would have slapped a brace on you. You'd have played the next week. And I was like, okay, that's good for me. And my wife was sitting there going, "Oh, what? Like, now you're crazy," you know? And I was like, "Nope, I'm good. That's all I needed to hear," you know? And granted, not every injury is going to be like that, but it's so true that there's so much more knowledge about the ability to come back quicker. Yeah. If you're treating it, you know, at the onset versus let's rest, let's ice, let's put it in a boot, which is for good. 6 weeks. Right. Which is good rest and ice. But let's put it in a boot and not do anything else for 6 weeks. Yeah. Then it's like, okay, no, let's rest and ice and move it. You know, with the proper, obviously, therapy sessions and everything. Don't just take it into your own hands. But very true.
Yeah, I think we're coming a long way into the ability to get back quicker, and even from surgery too, post-surgery recoveries are very fast now.
Yep.
So, well, I appreciate you being on. I will link your website in the show notes. So if anybody local or even not local wants to reach out and ask you questions or anything like that, definitely get in touch with you. So I thank you, Matt, for being on.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thanks for checking out the All in Health and Wellness Confidence Through Health podcast. Our goal is to use health as a conduit to help you reach your goals in life.
A little lighter than me. I'm about to black out and grip is getting tighter on me. I think I like it deep inside. I feel the fire in me. She like the milky, see me cream into the coffee in me. She got soul in the sway.